Hi, I'm Mary, certified relationship coach, Christian sex educator, empty nester, and happy jet skiing wife who believes God's design for sex in marriage is too good to stay quiet about.
And I'm Katieann, senior pastor, wife, mom to four kiddos, and I always love having some fun, even when we're diving into the deep and holy conversations about marriage and sex.
So, welcome to the Sexual Wholeness Revival Podcast. We are going to have so much fun today. I have a list coming from our audience, all kinds of comments and questions and things, and we're going to just jump in there and give feedback. And I just have to give a little disclosure. Katieann and I have not discussed our answers prior to this, so I'm on the edge of my seat, and I know she already told me she is. So just join in the ride here as we unpack some of the ideas that our audience is expressing. And hey, maybe this is something that you have thought as well, and it'll be helpful for you. And if it gets you thinking, then we always love to hear from you, and we'll make sure that there is a place where you can leave your comments and questions, and we can jump in and do one of these episodes again. So, Katieann, are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, the first question. What would you respond to this question from our social media? So now I'm going to read this question that was posted. Do wives hold back from sexual intimacy because they don't like their bodies? Or do husbands refuse their wife because he doesn't like her body? What do you think happens?
Definitely from the wife's perspective, that mental challenge, especially if you've had
Yeah.
babies, your body goes through changes as you age and hormones change and fluctuate.
Mm.
Things change. And if you're different hormonally, you're different physically. And so that mental game of wondering if he still finds you attractive, if he still wants you seems to be a battle that a lot of women
Yeah.
have, and it can be really challenging because why would you want to get naked and frisky with someone if all you're thinking about is them seeing all the imperfections and all the things that you think that he should notice or would notice that aren't maybe up to your quality and standard. And I think that media and every which way gives us a crazy idea of the standard for our bodies. If we're comparing our own physical bodies to what we see in Hollywood, what we see from the runways and the in medias and magazine and social media, then that mental game becomes quite a challenge to get over when you're talking about having intimacy with your spouse. As far as the husband, I think that there are times when maybe a spouse might want to refuse to have sex with their wife because maybe he doesn't find her body as attractive. In my experience, it usually is tied into, I'm going to say it, addiction
Okay.
and sexual addiction, because I heard it said one time that they're eating at a buffet in Vegas and you're a home cooked meal with cornbread. Why would they want a bowl of chili with cornbread when they've a buffet with lobster and prime rib? I think that those types of things can definitely pose a challenge, but I know a lot of marriages where the body image really is more the issue of the
Right.
wife feeling inadequate physically.
Yes. Hey, I would agree with you 100% on that. And I will tell you on my side of things, when I'm working with couples who come forward, zero men have said, I don't want to have sex with my wife because I don't like the way she looks.
Right.
Zero. Now, I know that by the time I see these couples, and most of them are Christian, that they are wanting everything that God has for them that maybe they've overlooked or they haven't tried yet. type of thing. So they're in the right direction. If it's someone that is
Right.
still out in an active porn addiction or hasn't broken free yet, then there's going to be even more of a struggle there. But typically, it is the wife who can be consumed with her body image, and she is putting the brakes on because of how she feels and possibly hasn't even asked him how he feels. I do know of scenarios
Right.
where they will talk about it and she needs some convincing. You really think my body's okay? And he's like, yes,
Right.
absolutely. You're the one for me, gaga. And so that's okay. I mean, as much as we can be vulnerable, we can open up avenues where we have honest communication. It's absolutely going to build your bond stronger and going to be a win-win for both of you.
Yeah. So good. And I have been in that
Mm.
boat too, where I've been, how could he still be attracted to me and want me, and just that negative self-image, and have had to have that conversation with my
Yeah.
husband where I say, "Do you even want me?" And it's a heck yeah. What are you thinking? So it oftentimes too correlates with my
Yeah.
cycle and where I am, and my cycle makes an impact on it. Let's be honest about
Mm.
that. I've never regretted asking my husband, and I've never regretted saying, "Hey, I'm struggling with this right
Mhm.
now," and allowing him to see that part of my heart vulnerably and let him even meet me in that place.
That's so good. That's so good.
Well, what do you think? I'm curious about this. There was an AI trend that was all over for Christmas on Facebook, Instagram, and the AI trend going around was all of these women in sparkly and sexy Christmas outfits. I'm curious if you partook in
Oh,
that, if you did that IA or didn't, but what you thought of
well,
that.
I partook by seeing it because I could not see it because it was everywhere. And everyone said, I'm just going to jump on the trend. I'm like, what does that even mean? Is that how you qualify your decisions? What I found interesting, it's fun to have fun. So I can imagine, oh, what would I look like in this outfit? That type of thing. But when I went a little deeper, because some of the posts included their AI prompt, and apparently there was feedback that you could give to this prompt about your body image and about how many curves and what size curves and where you wanted those curves to appear. And once again, I don't have a whole lot of know about that. I mean, why you want that to be public, I'm not sure. Where I have a know about that is for women who want to be sexy online and don't want to be sexy at home and for their husband. That's where there is a breakdown. And usually we don't think it through that much. It's just, oh, this is fun. Let's do it. It doesn't mean anything. And maybe it doesn't mean
Right.
anything for you, but
Right.
it is a possible red flag. And hey, if you're listening and you followed that AI prompt, then just take a minute and ask yourself questions about, well, why did I do it? What did it mean for me? If I had that outfit, would I wear it? What would that experience be like with my husband? So make something good out of this for your marriage so that it doesn't have to be, oh, I just jumped on the trend. Let's jump on something that is going to be lasting for your marriage. And we don't know where it could come because God can make good out of anything that comes up.
And to be honest, I did try it. I put the prompts in, and the picture it created was so far
Uh,
from it even looking like me, and I was like, "This is so weird. Why are people doing this?" Because I was just curious what it
yeah.
would create. I obviously didn't post anything, but I was like, "My eyes, they're soulless."
Oh, wow. Wow.
I was like, "Where that's not me. That's not me at all." So, I thought it was silly and just crazy how it blew up and so many
Yeah.
people were
Yeah,
doing
for
it.
sure.
Well, next question is from episode 6. of the Sexual Wholeness Revival Podcast, which
Mhm.
is us, the question was posed: when a husband tells his wife, "You're the only one who can meet my needs," do you know what he is actually implying? Such a great question.
Ooh, yes. And there was a lot of heated feedback from that. I will say maybe not the entire episode, but one of the clips that was posted that men spoke up and they were like, ah, this modern woman rubbish. Okay, they didn't say rubbish. This modern woman message that you are communicating, it's going to cause harm. It's going to cause damage. Literally, they called me a retard for sharing this
Yep.
message. And what it told me was A, they didn't hear the whole thing because we were pro finding ways to bridge the gap and to have closeness in your marriage. We weren't just saying, I'm going to say no because I'm all about saying no. We know that God's design for sexual intimacy in marriage is about mutual respect and satisfaction. So there would be always room for a give and take. You can say no, you can say yes. If you can't give a no to the request for sexual intimacy in marriage, then you aren't really able to give a full yes. So we expounded on that in that episode. And if you haven't listened to episode 6, we will make sure there's a link in the show notes for you. But I think that's why there was such an upset, because when someone is told no, there's always the possibility of feeling rejection. And we don't want that at all. But that may be what got triggered for somebody.
Yeah. And do you think that the response, I read the
Hmm.
comments, a couple of them, I don't know if I saw all of them, but it seemed very aggressive
Yeah.
and as if, this is some horrible, we're taking their blankie away. And you talked about them, being
Mm.
triggered, but the conversation of mutual respect, I would think, would be welcomed. Why do you think some men see this? You mentioned rejection being triggered, but do you think that there is a reason behind why some men really react to the possibility of their spouse saying no, not out of punishment, but trying to create mutual respect, like you said? Like, what do you think that is? Is it a lack of control or feeling out of control?
Well, they are not hearing the message about mutual respect and satisfaction. They're not hearing that. They're not seeing that. Media is not representing that. So the media and church messages are still way slanted that it is all about what the male wants in sex. And to make a shift from that is unsettling. And if they have not lived with a wife who is empowered in the most loving way, not the most indignant way, but just knows herself, knows her body, walks in confidence, if they haven't partnered with that, then no can be really unsettling. They haven't gotten a balanced, loving, respectful view about no. Maybe there's boundary issues in other areas of their life. Big can of worms there. Thank you so much, Katieann.
Yeah, it really is. It's that I'm the man and I'm number one boss, and it really leads into submission, which we won't get into. But it is a very interesting topic for sure.
Yeah,
There's your can of worms. Thank
there's
you
your
for
can of
answering that.
worms right there. Um, so from that same episode, because that was the one that pushed so many buttons, we also got the comment, I lived this for years. I would participate sexually. She's like going, I didn't say no. And he still went and met his needs elsewhere. How heartbreaking do you think that is for a woman?
Is incredibly heartbreaking. Yeah, there's some discussion about
Mm,
betrayal, and there's some thinking that if you are masturbating, if the husband is masturbating It's not really an affair. It's not really betrayal. But if you speak to the wife where this is a pattern, this is an addiction that keeps showing up in their marriage, you can convince her that it isn't
Right.
betrayal. It feels like betrayal. There is something so incredibly betraying because it's not like they just went and had an affair with an actual person. It's something that they have access to 24/7. And so there's a real out of control feeling as well because you don't know. You don't know if they're going to go meet their needs elsewhere or
Yeah.
for themselves. I have spoken to a number of women, and the hardest thing for them is I feel so incredibly betrayed. And sometimes for the husbands, they go, how could you feel that betrayed? When it's something that they've done since they were
Mm.
teenagers. It's they're taking care of their need. And so they don't necessarily understand how betraying it can feel. That is really, really hard to live with and try to navigate.
Right. And to even have a follow-up conversation about that. I assume that this type of a household is just volatile. You don't know what someone's going to say. You're walking on eggshells. There's a lot of fear that, hey, my spouse can't manage themselves. And it's not my job to manage them and me. What do I do? So I've seen healing in this situation, which is wonderful and
Yeah,
definitely available.
amazing.
Takes work and commitment, but to be able to restore your marriage after these types of situations is a beautiful story. So I want to make sure that we mention that in this process, even though
Yeah.
the world, even church world, is filled with these weird issues about sex. Healing is happening, it is available, and
Yes.
because God can rewrite your story anywhere along the way. Amen to that.
Amen. Yeah, and I just want to add for the women in this situation, what you're needing is a level of
Uh-huh.
ownership that maybe you haven't experienced from your spouse. And when it comes to these types of sexual addiction, sometimes it's harder for the other person to fully take ownership. And when there's a resistance to taking ownership, it doesn't help that feeling of betrayal. And so, if you're having these conversations with your spouse, maybe finding a way to articulate and say, hey, sometimes I don't feel there's a full ownership. And maybe start the conversation that way.
And I know
See if there can't be some,
we're trying to wrap this issue up, but we just keep going. There's one more thing.
oh, there's
Yeah,
one
compassion. Even though your spouse
compassion.
might be the one that is engaging in the sexual activity that you feel betrayal, but can you have compassion for your spouse? As you said, maybe this is a habit that he's had since he was a teenager, doesn't know another way for whatever reason, and he doesn't know the depths of it. So we don't want to just portray them as this big monster. We want to know that there is a place of healing and redemption where he is being able to see if he wants it. And we're using this example, but it certainly goes the other way, where a wife might be the one engaged
Right.
in sexual behavior that's harmful to her husband. But there is always a place of redemption, and both spouses have work that they can
Yeah.
do on it.
Both. Yeah, absolutely. So much wisdom, Mary. I would like to know your wisdom on this next
Hey,
question from YouTube. We got the comment, after 17 years of a sexless marriage, I am done. What do you even say to someone in that
I
position?
always identify with the pain and the disappointment that they might be experiencing, and even knowing you could be grieving this loss because you did have a hope and a dream for what your marriage would look like, what intimacy would look like. And if it's gone, then being able to validate that pain is certainly a starting place. And from that point forward, I mean, there are couples who continue in a sexless marriage. all kinds of extenuating circumstances for that. So trying to figure out if you can stay married or not, and it continues to be sexless, or if there are types of healing release tools that you haven't experienced yet, and there still could be a way through this. I follow somebody on social media, and it's actually a husband of a wife going through perimenopause, and he does a great job. I guess I'm going to have to put his link in here too. But just little tidbits for husbands to understand what their wife is experiencing and why she's not interested in sex. It's such a different scenario for a woman versus a man. And if a man doesn't have the understanding, then it's going to be hard for him to keep that door open for communication. So more
Yeah.
understanding is always helpful.
More understanding. That's so good.
All right, I've got another one for you, Katieann, and this was from episode 7, where we talked about the quiet lies sabotaging your sex life and how to break them. And there was a comment that said, "Hey, I'm ready for you to get to the positives and the joy and the happiness of that sexual intimacy brings, and to move away from all the reasons not to have it." And I just want to hear from you. Why, on this podcast, the Sexual Wholeness Revival, why do we talk about the problems that people have with sex?
Yeah, I think it's so important because it is, in a way, it's such a huge issue that affects so many people, and there hasn't been a lot of
Mm,
dialogue around it and about the pain points that produce the fruit of disconnect and all of those things. And so it's really important to talk about what are some of the common issues that people are having. One, it helps them to understand they're not
yes.
alone. And that can be very isolating, very hope deferring, to feel like you're alone and you just have this issue in your marriage and no one would ever understand. And so sometimes when we begin to talk about it, it gives those people, hey, I've had that. Hey, I'm not the only one. Oh, I'm not crazy. I'm not. And so it helps to give people a voice and to feel like, hey, there is help for this. But also, it is really important to talk about the issues because you will keep producing the fruit of brokenness if you don't get to the root of what the
Yes.
issue is. And it's like if you have a injury in your body and you take ibuprofen, well, ibuprofen is going to get you through for
Mm,
so long. But if you don't address the
right.
injury and get to the root of the injury or an infection, you can throw a band-aid on it all you want. But if you don't address why that infection keeps coming and won't ever go away, you're never going to heal from it. And so there needs to be healing. And really, when the healing for these places come, the whole sexual intimacy dialogue just blows up and makes
Yeah.
so much more sense. And you understand you can actually live in the why around God creating sexual intimacy in the
Mm-hmm.
first place. All the way back in the garden, he had this grand plan, and brokenness and hurt and failure and rejection and shame. All of those things are oftentimes narrating parts of our lives, and some parts we don't
Sure.
even know. And so talking about those issues really is to reveal. It also helps when you feel isolated that there's empathy.
Right.
Empathy is really important in healing and moving through this.
Yes. I love being able to validate someone else's story so that you can recognize if that's your story. And then it might give you some steps to take that you hadn't considered. At the very least, it will also give you hope. And wow, we would be nowhere without that hope. And I have a thought as we're wrapping this up that is something fresh that God has shown me in a way to capture this idea. I believe that every couple can enjoy intimacy in their marriage. And so it's available. It's a part of God's design. Every couple can enjoy intimacy in their marriage. Now, I know there may have been things that were problems. I think one of the biggest problems is that it has been taboo. And I did this funny little word search. I don't know why I haven't done this before, but what is the opposite of taboo? And taboo is, oh, resistance. It's like warning, warning, red light. No, no, don't go there. But the opposite of taboo is acceptance and encouragement. And that's definitely what we are doing by having these conversations. We are bringing acceptance
Yeah.
around God's design because that is the pattern, that is the model, that is the original plan. That's what we want to line up with, and encouragement to get there. And encouragement comes in the form of validating pain. Encouragement also comes in the form of giving really practical tools. So Sexual Wholeness Revival is here for you. And what I'm inviting you to do this week is to give us the comments and the questions so that we understand, what are you struggling with? What do you want to learn more about? And we will make sure there's a link in the show notes so that you have the perfect place to leave that feedback. We just love it. So keep it coming.
Yeah. Yeah. And until next time, let's bring back wholeness.